Welcome to this webinar on ESS BIZGRANTS. I hope you're having a wonderful day and thank you for your interest in looking at this product. If you have any questions during the webinar, can you type them into your computer and in webinar jargon, raise your hand and I will answer the questions during the webinar. What we have on the screen at present is the home page on ESS BIZGRANTS. You can visit this area and have a look at various aspects of what's included in the system. There's a testimonial there that we're quite proud of from David Smith, former president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants and the managing director of Smith Inc. 2020. David believes that this product should be in every accountant's office because few accountants are aware of the grants that are available to their clients. There are hundreds of grants and we've tried to incorporate these within ESS BIZGRANTS, and the grants are from the federal government, state government, territory governments that relate to small and medium enterprises. What we're going to do is log on. We'll come back to this area here later on in the webinar. What a member first gets is a member's homepage, which gives an overview of where to start on the process of utilizing this product. But I'm going to take you through and show you in a practical way how to use it. So we'll go straight to client profiles and we're going to add a new profile. It's essential to include a profile on the client so that the system can go through and identify who the client might be. So I'm going to put in a fictitious business situated in Auburn in Sydney, which we're going to call Western Fabricators. And it's a proprietary limited company. I'll just put P/L. And I lost that somehow then. You could put in a number there if you wished, because we are using cloud technology. It depends on your firm's philosophy on cloud technology. We really want you to keep the information, the data in the system, so it's not going to take as long to set up next year. The next question you have to identify is what sort of entity is the business operated through. Now the default item on here is company because that is the most common entity group for government grants. In fact, I cannot think of a government grant that is not available for a company, but for many of these other types of entities, government grants are only available in a few instances. So we've selected company. The system then asked, does the business export? Well, this fabrication business does, so we'll click yes. Do they import products? Yeah, they do import some products. And by answering yes to both of those, we're opening up the opportunity to be shown some grants that could apply to this business. Number of employees is quite important for many grants. This business we've established has got 20 employees and a 12 million turnover. I probably should have told you that before. So we'll put in the 0 to 20. Do you have an ABN? We do have. We're an operating company. And if a business doesn't have an ABN, it will not be shown a grant because that's the laws with all the agencies supplying grants. How many years have you been operating? This business has been going for 10 years, but you'll notice here we've got nil in some instances, but not many these days. The years in business doesn't apply, but many grants now require a business to have been in operation for over 3 years. There are some that require over 2 years, mainly some of the state and territory grants. So we're going to answer over 3 years. The next big question is turnover. Turnover comes into every grant. It varies. This business, I look at my sheet, we said it had a $12 million turnover, so that's between $1.5 and $20 million. So we'll just click on there. Obviously, we've set the turnover groups to line up with various grants. Are you registered for GST? This is again one of the requirements to get a grant at this level. You need to be registered for GST. Are you tax exempt? If you answered yes for that, you will not be shown grants, because this product within ESS BIZGRANTS is targeted for small, medium enterprises, not for not-for-profits and charities. Are you involved in research and development? We're going to say yes. And by answering yes for research and development, it can also open up some other grants that we believe would be triggered by a business having undertaken research and development. So we're going to save that information now. You can come back and edit it if you decide you've made a mistake. And 123 West Street, I hope there's no such street in Auburn. Auburn. In New South Wales, and I understand the postcode's 2144. Now, entering the postcode is important because it will identify then the area that postcode is identified in, and you can see this summary we've got here. We've got the address. Because we've entered the postcode, it's identified that Auburn's in the major cities of Australia, because obviously it's part of the Sydney metropolitan area. The other information there on financial is basically a repeat of what we've already put in, so you can just check it to make sure that you're happy with that. So the next thing we need to go to is the business industry codes. Now these are now based on the Australian Taxation Office business industry codes, and you can do one of three things. If you know the code because you've been completing the client's income tax return, you could enter the code here where I'll just get the highlighter, might be easier. So where I'm putting the highlighter there now, you just enter the code, and then you click on search grants, and the system would identify the grants that will apply for this type of entity with this type of business. If you are unsure of the code but you know a bit of it, you can just put in a keyword and the system will go through and identify from the Australian Taxation Office business industry codes the codes that apply. If you're not sure of either the keyword or the code, you can click on to the taxation site. We've got a direct link there, and go through it and identify what those grants might be, what those industries might be. So we'll just do that one first. We can click on. We're going to bring up, first of all, in the alphabetical index of industries, and then we're going to be able to look at the actual 17 different industry classifications that's used by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So these codes the ATO uses are basically the same as the Australian Bureau of Statistics, except for two important qualifications. One, they're more up to date because the Australian Bureau of Statistics only updates theirs after each census. And I notice in the media they're now talking about the census being done once every 10 years rather than once every 6 years. So it's going to be even longer before the ABS updates their codes. And the other one is the Taxation Office has put an extra digit into the code. Other than that, they are basically the same. So obviously we've got them there, first of all, in alphabetical order and then in the industry types. I haven't selected one, but you could have selected one. If we come back to here and we put in a word, and we might say these are a steel fabricator, so we'll put the word steel into the system. ESS BIZGRANTS has then identified the various industries that relate to steel, and one we're after is this fabricated steel fabrication. So all we need to do is just click on there, and what it has done is then transferred structural steel product manufacturing over here onto this side, which is the side of the page that is relating to the actual industries. And again, I'll highlight it. So there's our preferred industry. You could add others if you wished. So some of these others could also apply. And the one I've been using is building structure services. So we'll say, okay, we're going to do the structural, our client does the structural steel erection as well. So we'll put that into the system. So let's see what grants might now be available for this type of client. So bear in mind the specification of the client. The system's saying we've potentially got 18 grants. So this is a steel fabricator, turnover of $12 million, 20 staff, located in Auburn, New South Wales. We'll just go through these first of all. There's a number of apprenticeship grants that come up, and obviously they're depending on the different characteristics. Adult apprentices, apprentices with disabilities, and skill-based apprentices. They basically apply to every type of industry at present. And there's also an apprenticeship incentive for existing workers. Now, the government did announce some months ago that they're going to change all the apprenticeship rules from the 1st of July this year, but obviously our system at this stage is still incorporating the rules that apply at present. But if you're going to be submitting applications after the 1st of July, you'll probably find that they're different. The Australian Bureau of Statistics information comes up in every search, because it's free information available to every small, medium enterprise. And I really do suggest that you have a good look at their information. Years ago, that used to cost $8,000 or $9,000 to get, and that was when Peter Costello was Treasurer, so that's a few years ago now, and he made it free. I don't know how much longer it's going to be free. The government seems to be running around trying to find every dollar they can at present, so if you want to use it, it might be a good idea to use it now. Business Growth Grant has been shown in 3 different industries, because the steel fabricator, together with the erection business, could well have fallen into those 3 categories we got here: advanced manufacturing, infrastructure, and mining equipment. Now, obviously, you can only claim under one. So that's going to narrow down the number of industries. Certain inputs to manufacturers, some benefits that importers can get. Export Market Development Grant, hopefully you're familiar with that grant. It's available for exporters. Unfortunately, thousands of small businesses that are potentially eligible for it don't seem to apply. Industry Capability Network, again, I think a very essential network for your clients to be registered on, especially if they're making something or developing things. It's a free service run by the federal and all the state and territory governments and the New Zealand government. They've got a massive database of people in Australasia who can make things or develop things or do certain types of work. A lot of businesses are not registered on it because they don't know about it. Perhaps you can talk to your clients about that. Industry Skills Fund is a new training grant that started 4 weeks ago. We'll come back to that in a minute. R&D incentive. And under Research Connections, the system is identifying also that you could have been potentially eligible in those same 3 industry groups again: advanced manufacturing, infrastructure, related construction, and mining equipment. Well, again, you only get one of them. So let's just go through these so you can see how the system works. Let's click on to Accelerating Commercialisation. Now, this is a very interesting grant. It's the largest grant in the Australian government's grant portfolio for small medium enterprises these days. So when you first click onto the grant, you get a grant description. And you'll notice there in the final paragraph the grants are up to $1 million. There's no minimum amount, but for general practical purposes, I think the minimum grant will be in the vicinity of $60,000 to $70,000. It's on a 50% basis, so obviously that means the projects would be 120 to 140. The government expects the average to be around $250,000 to $300,000, but the maximum can be up to $1 million. And it's to help with the commercialisation. So you read that and you say, yes, well, our client is doing something. And the key thing here is they needed to have developed a new product, process or service. So let's look at the funding, and I've probably told you the funding. I've said they're a minimum of $5,000. I don't think they'd take you on at that. I might change that to $50,000. But the amount's $1 million and it's 50%. So you're happy with that? Let's have a look at the toolkit. Now what the toolkit means, and this appears with every one of our grant, is that we have a paper within ESS BIZTOOLS that explains how the grants work. And this one's on accelerating commercialisation overview. One of the key things that you have to satisfy to get this grant is the merit criterion, and the first one has to be achieved before they'll look at any of the others, and that's the need for funding. So don't go submitting an application for a company that's got $5 million in the bank, because they will ask for the balance sheet, unless you've got a very good reason as to why the company needs that $5 million, because otherwise the response will be, will use your own money. Having said that, there will be quite a large number of businesses to access this grant. Now this grant is targeted at what the government's calling the growth sections. And the growth sections are those ones there on item 38 and onwards: advanced manufacturing, oil, gas and energy, medical technologies, mining equipment, food and agri-businesses. And then these services, professional services, very narrowly defined: freight and logistics, infrastructure-related construction, and information and communication technology, if they are benefiting one of these earlier ones, can be eligible. The government, rightly or wrongly, has identified these key industries as being the growth section, and that's the only industries that they will fund under this grant. So if we just have a look at that, we just might move through the contents. This is a big paper because it's a big, complicated area, and an applicant could secure $1 million, which means, of course, they've got to have a $2 million project. It's all handled through commercialisation advisors, who are private enterprise consultants contracted to the Entrepreneurs Infrastructure Program, which is the program that administers this grant and a few others. So you've got a paper there you can read. You could print and make that available to your client if you wished. Now our original search is narrowed it down to a certain extent. We've now got to go through some further narrowing down to decide whether your client may well be eligible for this grant. Has the applicant developed a novel product, process or service? You need to have that. You can't get the $1 million just to outfit your factory. So we'll click on yes. If the applicant is not a company, will the applicant agree to be a company when the contract has to be signed? The only applicants applicable in this area are companies or incorporated trustees for a trust. So we say yes, we're sure our client will do that, but the client's already a company, so that's not a problem. Does the applicant have the ability to fund 50% of the project over the next 2 years? I've answered yes to that. Obviously you need to ask some questions about that, and this particular grant requires an accountant's statement to go with the application. So you need to be asking questions about future cash flows. It might be coming from business angel investors, what arrangements have been made with those investors. The application will require firm committal letters. But the important thing is your client doesn't have to have this money on day one. If they can satisfy you, first of all, that they will get the money at various milestone dates during the next 1 to 2 years, then you should be able to satisfy the commercialisation case manager. Can the applicant justify the funding is required? That's an important part of this process, so hopefully they will be able to do that, so we'll answer yes. And does the applicant own or control the intellectual property? They can't be just relying on downloading someone's intellectual property off the internet. They have to own it or control it. Now, we've answered yes to each of those. Some of the correct answers can be no in some of the grants, but we've answered yes. And what happened then, we had apply now appeared on the screen. So if we click on that, you would then get the direct access to the new government business gov AU site to view the application form, or in this case it's the notification that you would like to apply, or your client would. Now we won't go through that process, we'll close that. Now the system now is going to update whether the client could be eligible for this particular grant. Now we come here, we started with 18, we've now got 17, we go to potentially eligible, and the system's saying we're potentially eligible on the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant. So if we go back to pending, and I'm just going to pick a couple of these others out that I just wanted to comment on. We're going to go to Business Growth Grant, because this is a grant that I think you should be very conscious of, especially if you've got clients in these so-called growth industries. And incidentally, in those growth industries, there's hundreds of different industries. And within our system, we have accounted for those. We've built them in. And so just don't look at this very narrowly. Advanced manufacturing can include all sorts of things, from mattress makers through to bed makers through to car makers. Not much of that anymore in Australia, unfortunately, and so on. Just bear in mind there are upper turnover limits in some of these. Now we're going on to now the Business Growth Grant. It's saying that an advanced manufacturing business, so there's the summary. And basically this grant provides support for companies within turnovers of 1.5 million to 100 million. Remember I said earlier there's not much around for startups anymore, and this grant really proves it. 1.5 million is a minimum. If the client is located in a remote location, and that's in accordance with the health industry maps, which we have links to on this site, the turnover need only be $750,000. Maximum is $100 million. They have to be a company. They can secure up to $20,000 on a 50% basis. And you can virtually do anything which will improve the business's performance. There's a list there of some of the things that it might be covered under, but it's virtually anything which will improve the performance. And there's a lot of work to be done here for accountants. I've done business plans, strategic plans, budgets, debtor systems review, human resources systems review, risk management, and another. I mentored a couple of management teams that needed some mentoring. So there's a range of activities that can be identified. Again, your client has to deal with a contracted private enterprise consultant who is the case manager for this program. They have to be satisfied that your client needs support and that they're fair income about trying to achieve some changes in their business. So the funding is up to $20,000. It could be a lower amount. The toolkit. Now, this one has got a paper on how the Business Growth Grants operates, because they can operate for a number of those industries. So there's a paper there, so you can read that, so you've got a general background. You don't have to read these if you don't want to. We've set out to be the government grant experts. And there's the industries that the applicants can come from, and it goes on to explain how the system operates. And there then is a separate paper on the way it relates to advanced manufacturing, because each of these industries have got some peculiarities. So you can read all that, and you're up to date. And we now look at the additional criteria. Is the business solvent and able to pay its debts? Hopefully they can. Has the business been operating under approved structure? So the applicant has to have been operating for 3 years. Then the initial guidelines say as a company or an incorporated trustee. But then in a major change from what happened under the previous program, which was called Enterprise Connect, under the previous government, the rules were changed that if you've been operating as an individual or a partnership, and now you're going to incorporate as a company, or you have incorporated as a company, and there's a continuous line of the same person basically either being the owner as an individual or a partner. Now the company, they will accept that you've been in operations for 3 years. Has the applicant ever received a business growth grant or a tailored under the Enterprise Connect program? Now I'm going to show you what happens. The correct answer there is yes. I've answered no. Sorry, I'll say it around the other way. The correct answer was no. I've answered yes. Does the business provide high-value manufacture? We say, yeah, we do all that. We don't get apply now come up. And when I close out of this, the system's going to say we were not eligible. Because if you have a client that's already received a grant under this program or its predecessor, Enterprise Connect, it will show it that it's not eligible. So we'll just move on and look at one more. Export Market Development Grant. There's the summary. Obviously we've passed the deadline for this year, which was that the application had to be lodged by the 30th of November. We'll be updating this page in the next few weeks to start putting the figures in for 2015. Funding is up to $150,000 and a 50% of eligible expenditure, and there's a list that's quite extensive of eligible expenses as long as your client has spent over $20,000, and it doesn't include anything to do with exports to New Zealand, North Korea or Iran. And the New Zealanders aren't very impressed of being lumped in with that group of other countries. We've got the toolkit there, and this one I'll just give you a variation because we've got a list there of what are eligible expenses for the Export Market Development Grant. So you can see it's covering overseas market visits, overseas representative expenditure, communication costs, product samples, trade fairs, marketing consultants, buyers, coming to Australia, promotional. It covers a whole range of things that need to be identified. There's also the paper there, which I won't go into. So the additional criteria: have you spent money to seek out or create demand for products? We answer yes. If you're claiming overseas representation or marketing, have you maintained documentary evidence? You need to do that, or your client does. If you're claiming expenses under marketing visits, have you maintained full records? We say yes. If you have claimed 2 export market development grants in prior years, have you discussed with Austrade? That's very important. Once they've claimed, your client's claimed for 2 years, you need to have a discussion with Austrade, or your client does. Will the business spend more than $20,000 in 13-14, or has it done so over 2 years? Your first year of claim can be in fact over a 2-year period. So you could have claimed the $20,000 as an accumulation figure in 12-13 and then 13-14. So yes. Is the business the principal? The business has to be the principal, can't be the agent. So apply now. If we did that now, that would take us to the Austrade website where we could register our interest. You really don't have to do any pre-registration on this, but they would prefer a potential new applicant to contact them and let them know. So fill in the application, because Austrade like to come and interview and make sure your client are getting the best potential. Now time's moving on, so I'm now going to go to print report. In actual practice, you would continue to go through those, pick the ones you think your client could be interested in. We've now produced a report for Western Fabricators where it's got prepared by ESS BIZTOOls. It would say the name of your business as the licensee to use this product. It's dated, and it's given a summary of the grant that's applicable, the funding details. The disclaimer basically says that your applicant, your client is only an applicant. They've got to go through all the process. All that this system is doing is identifying that they might be eligible. And then the export market development grant. So our suggestion then is you would sit down and have a conversation with your client. Indicate to them in a very proactive manner you have identified that these grants are available, and do they now wish you to proceed with lodging an application for them and assisting you. At that stage, our suggestion is you indicate you will be charging a separate fee for this work, and you will be billing it to them separately. We suggest that you process this form, this ESS BIZGRANTS, as you're completing the client's financial accounts, so that when you have a discussion with the client, you can raise this with him. Now, I'm not the fastest typist, as you probably all saw. It didn't take that long to enter those details. In actual time, it takes about 3 minutes to put the information in. It will take someone that understands and knows the client's business a little bit longer to go through and look at the options that are going to be presented, or you could sit down with your client and do that. It's up to you. The main thing is you are going to be seen as being very proactive and identify these grants. So I've got no questions. Has anyone got any questions that they would like to ask me? I hope it's not too noisy, but I'm just going to open up your communication, if you like. Just bear with me a moment. I'll go through and open these, try to open these up. So if any of you want to now talk to me, as long as you've got a microphone on your computers, if you've got any specific questions, that should be okay. Oh, for me to unmute you, you'll have to enter your PIN number that we sent you. And Gabby, we seem to be having that problem with you, but the rest of you are unmuted. If you wish to ask me any questions, I'm happy to talk to you. Okay, well, if you think of any questions later on that you'd like to get answers for, I'm happy to look at them. I can hear someone typing. I presume you're typing a question, so I'll just hang on a moment. Oh, great question. How much does it cost? You have my staff laughing at me here. Great salesman, eh? The subscription is $450 plus GST, so $495 for 12 months. That's per office. You can have as many authors, users on the system as you like, and use it 24/7. And someone else asked me exactly the same thing. Yeah, so it's $495 for the 12-month subscription. If you subscribe to our other major product, ESS BIZGRANTS Gold subscription, which costs $2,700 plus GST, you receive a free subscription to ESS BIZGRANTS. And I had forgotten to go back to the beginning, and I'll just go back to there now. When you go to our site, you can view the pricing, and I'm just trying to show you the if you want to have a free trial, you can enter the details and you will be able to get a free trial for 14 days. You can trial it for a couple of your clients and see how the system works. And the 14 days runs from the time you complete the details. You just need to put those details in, submit them, and the system will give you a username for a 14-day free trial. Then hopefully you'll agree to become a full-time subscriber. The other thing I should have mentioned is every time there's a new grant, we put the details into the system. The most recent major federal grant is the Skills Development Fund, which is available, and that grant is in the system as you saw there before. There's a question here, what is iFirm intranet? I'm not quite certain what you... It's on the toolbar. We have an arrangement with CCH iFirm for our products, ESS BIZTOOLS products, to be available for subscribers onto CCH iFirm. It's been launched next week, and a gold subscriber to ESS BIZTOOLS on CCH iFirm will gain access to our BizGrants product. So I'm not quite sure where you saw that iFirm, but that's what it would relate to. Thank you. I can hear someone else typing, so I'll just see what... I've got a question now, what does the full $2,700 package include? That covers ESS BIZTOOLS. I'll just flick across to there, seeing you've asked me the question. We don't seem to have too many more questions on BizGrants. I've now brought up, and you should have it on your screens, ESS BIZTOOLS. This is our major product, and it's covering a range of activities. Covering business advisory services, so it assists an accountant to get ready to deliver business advisory services. And then there is 15 products that have been pre-prepared, ready for delivery. Client mentoring and coaching is material that's there to assist an accountant to, and I'm just bringing these up on the screen now, to educate clients as to the type of services that are available by the accountant. Many small, medium enterprises don't really appreciate that their accountant does more than annual accounts and taxation. So it's one of the reasons we produced those articles. They were prepared at request of one of our Perth subscribers a few years ago, who wanted to be able to really identify to a new prospect the type of services they were able to offer. We have leadership modules. There are 8 leadership modules that have got full material, pardon me, to assist in some leadership training within your firm in the first instance, and then you could offer that service to your clients if you wished. I believe that leadership is an enormous area when it comes to offering business advisory services, which I personally believe every accounting firm should be offering. Business Plus is a newsletter we produce each month, which our subscribers badge with their name and logo, etc. The newsletter is targeted at small, medium enterprises. The Small Business Advisory package is targeted at training organisations, so that really doesn't apply. You get all the same material they get. ESS BIZTOOLS, there's currently 529 papers in ESS BIZTOOLs, and for each set of papers there is a PowerPoint slides so that it's easier to explain. The system also includes 35 pre-prepared seminars stroke webinars that are able to be utilised to market your services. I believe that seminars, webinars are the easiest and best promotional tool that accountants can use to market their services. We've prepared the seminars in various time frames, but the most popular group are the 1 hour webinars these days. And there's all sorts of workbooks and video tutorials in the system. So that's a brief overview of what's in ESS BIZTOOLS. We present a monthly webinar as an introduction on ESS BIZTOOLS. And in the material we're going to send you after this webinar, we will include the dates of the webinars on ESS BIZTOOLs in March. So hopefully that has answered the questions. I'm just going back to make sure I've answered each of the questions that you've typed in. Obviously we'd be happy to talk to you, each and every one of you, about a subscription to ESS BizGrants and to ESS BIZTOOLs. And as I mentioned before, if you subscribe to ESS BizGrants Gold Package, which gives you everything that we have in our system, together with a free access to ESS BizGrants and the right to place the ESS BIZTOOLs papers in a secure section of your website available to your clients and prospects that you've given access to. That's the total package within ESS BIZTOOLs. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. If you think of any additional questions, don't hesitate to send us an email. We will be sending you a questionnaire after this webinar. If you're interested in the recording, it will be available on YouTube in a couple of days' time, and our communications officer, Marlene, will send you details of that. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.